Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Silk Road Nexus conversation. Today, I am very lucky to have Valentina with me. I am here at the Manifest Expo, and Valentina, she's the CEO of Nauta. So, Valentina, if you can quickly introduce about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Valentina Jordan, co-founder and CEO of Nauta. My background is in product and tech, have been building for the past 12 years, and for the past year and a half, have been lucky enough to be able to build a product to transform the global supply chain.
Wow. So, is your background in supply chain as well?
No, actually, no, I've been newly adopted by the supply chain. I've always worked in last mile and B2B with supermarkets, with retailers, with restaurants. But my co-founder spent his whole career, his whole life actually was born into the supply chain.
Wow.
And so it's part of a DNA as a company.
Wow. Thank you. And let's jump into it.
Perfect.
So let's start with Nauta. Can you give us a quick introduction about what Nauta does, what market you are playing in, and how this company came into being, and what problems you're solving?
Certainly happy to. So Nauta is an AI native operating system for global supply chain. So we help shippers. And when we talk about shippers, we're talking about wholesalers, distributors, manufacturers, retailers, and traders optimize their whole supply chain. What we mean by this is we make their life easier by connecting inventory with logistics. So we're bridging that gap and giving them control on an SKU level. How we do this is by sitting on top of their current tech stack. So ERP, TMS, WMS, OMS, extracting and contextualizing all of their data, meaning creating that data foundation in order to give them predictive analytics and agentic automation. So we're basically creating a single source of truth for all this unstructured data that they've been dealing with for their whole lives, and actually empowering them to add value.
Got it. And you mentioned about unstructured data, and I think that has been one of the biggest problem in supply chain because you have so many players uh, moving one single parcel. Let's say if it's shipping from China and coming in the United States, there are at least 15 companies that touch that parcel. So that data is definitely unstructured. Can you speak a little bit about like how big is this problem?
Totally. So, even before going to how big the problem is, I think it's super important to understand that what you're saying is completely right. You have over 12 players that are involved in moving a single product from point A to point B. Now, that's the reason why for us, the shipper is the holy grail in the whole global supply chain. It's because three things. Number one, they're actually own the product. So they're the ones buying the good from the supplier and they're most interested in making sure that it arrives on time. The second is that they have the full picture and access to the information. So they have everything that the custom broker is declaring. They have everything from the carrier, the maritime line. And then third, which for us is the most important, they're paying it. So incentives are aligned in order for them to have that access. So for us, shippers is around a $5 trillion industry. It's very, very big. And as I mentioned, we are mostly focused on wholesalers, distributors. And these are companies where the logistics is a means to an end. That's not their core business. However, they need to be able to optimize it and solve it in order for their P&L to be healthy.
No, makes sense. And when I know you touched a little bit about your customers, but I want to kind of step back and understand when I look at supply chains, value chain in general, and we take one product, for example, this was made somewhere and it's finally sitting on this table. There were multiple partners that did it. Like there were manufacturers, then there were sellers, then there are supply chain logistics companies, and then finally there is a buyer who does that.
Yeah.
In this entire value chain, what component are you touching? And I know you talked about wholesale distributors and shippers, but is that the component that you're touching, or are there other players that you work with?
That's a great question. And I love speaking to people that actually understand supply chain because you can tell. So we touch everything from the data perspective. And the reason why it's because how we view the global supply chain is that it's divided in three: the movement of a physical good, the movement of data or information, and the movement of money. So we are in the business of movement of data or information. And because our client is the shipper, we are touching the data that all of the other stakeholders are. Now, let's go to your particular example of this container right here, right? Who my user, my client is the distributor, wholesaler, manufacturer. So in this case, it would be the manufacturer of this plastic container, and it can also be the person or the company that is buying the container because they're a shipper as well, and they can distribute it to, I don't know, Toys R Us, right? Or
Yeah.
Target. So those two would be my client. And the reason why it's because the core business is not logistics, right? So the manufacturer of the container, they have to import, export to for the plastic, for the ink, for the, I don't know, the molds. There are a series of things that they need in order to do their job as a company, which is produce the container. Now, the person who is buying the container, ensuring they probably have a contract with the retailer, they probably have a contract with someone to be able to sell the container to. And so again, the logistics is a means to an end to that. That's my sweet spot of client. And the reason why it's so important is because it's not their core business. And so it's not their expertise, and they're relying on third parties or on smaller teams to be able to achieve that. So we are centralizing, creating this single source of truth, and basically we run on 18 agents that are flagging information, identifying patterns, and making all of the data that they've been sitting on for years, for decades, actually actionable, which we think is where the industry and what we're seeing it's moving to. Like, people don't want another dashboard. They want something that's actionable.
Exactly. No, I think that has been the trend in the last 3 years for sure. Since the advent of agents and AI in its adoption in supply chain, which I'm seeing is slower than other industries. But now I think with companies like Nauta, the adoption will continue to rise, and players like Nauta will continue to make software that will reduce the burden and the operational costs that these wholesale distributors and shippers have been, eating along on their P&L. So going back into the problem,
Yeah.
can we take one problem and then tell our viewers and subscribers around what is that one problem? How is financially that is impacting the customers?
Yeah. And this is great. And I think even before answering your question, I think something that you mentioned that is critical is this industry actually is spending loads of money on technology. It's not like, oh yeah, it's been slower to adopt because we're not tech first, or because, no, the reality is my clients have pretty robust tech stacks. They have ERP, TMS, WMS, OMS, you name. And so they have designated budgets for this. So it's not like they haven't ever invested in technology and so it's slower. It's more that technology hasn't been built to actually help them. They're almost like working for that technology instead of the other way around. Let's think of a systems of record, right? Like, you need a human to come in and keep it up to date in order for it to actually add value for the company. That doesn't work in an industry like ours. So I think you touched the nail on the head. Now, how do we add value to our clients? And we normally like to divide this into cost savings and revenue generation. And I'm a very blunt and direct person. And at Nauta, our ethos is like, just by saving costs, you won't transform that industry. You need to help companies generate additional revenue.
Correct.
And the way that we do this is by, as I mentioned, connecting inventory with logistics. How does this translate in a metric? Two things. Number one, fill rate. So we're talking about that fill rate in this enterprise level clients is around 85%.
Wow.
That's very, very low. That means that you have 15% of uncovered revenue that you're just like, not
using it.
there. Exactly. So how we do that is, in very simple terms, we help them optimize to not have overstock and not have stockouts, which both represent huge risks for these companies. And then the second thing in terms of revenue generation is around cash on cash. So we all know that cash flow is the silent killer in supply chain. So we found ways directly with our AI to be able to map these things and help. I'll give you a very tangible example.
Sure.
One of our clients, I think it was like 10 days ago, our AI started flagging that their main supplier, which is a huge electronics company that we all use, and it's everywhere here, was shipping the product 7 days in advance.
Okay.
These represent $2.6 million in tied cash that they were not realizing, that was just basically killing their work. So these are the types of things that we are able to transform and help our clients with. So that's in revenue generation. Now, being very honest, in order to prove real fast ROI, and we're seeing, connecting a little bit more to the tech world, that aha moment is not what you need to look for with product. It's ROI. This isn't like either you add value or you don't. And to add value with revenue generation, it'll take time. We've seen it take between 90 to 120 days. It's not a immediate. So how do you actually get that immediate ROI? We do it through cost savings. So what are the things that we do through cost savings? Helping them with penalties, delays, and demurrages. We have a client that has saved over $3 million in delays and demurrages using Nauta.
Yeah.
The other thing that we do is reconciliation. So finding differences in documents and in what you're expecting versus what you're getting. Everything around missing documentations and audits and compliance to be able to declare and receive merchandise. Of course, human labor. Again, we're very direct. We're not here to replace people. We're here to augment people. And that's very important because of context. And we can speak a little bit about that if you want. But we always choose with our client 2 or 3 levers. And we target real ROI, first on cost savings, and then
Got it. Okay. And then just continuing on that thought, and you mentioned about it, that you play with data. And then you also mentioned that there is a lot of unstructured data, which some of your clients already like seeing the impact. If you can manage that data or massage that data, there could be meaningful outcomes that can be driven from it.
Yes.
Those outcomes could be value from multiple perspectives, not just dollars, but also adding more customer values, etc. How bad is the data situation in supply chain? Like that has been one of the key things that I have been noticing. I have worked in this space. The data is really bad, but how bad is it? Because you are directly looking at it.
Answer this. Please don't make me answer this because but look, the reality is that there's 2 ways. I like to view the world in frameworks. And I think that I don't want to say it's bad. It's completely unstructured. It doesn't come in chronological order. And the crazy thing is that every company uses it differently. So it's a mixture between unstructured data and context. So I don't want to say it's bad because honestly, when we started out, that was like, this is not good enough. We're not going to be able to. So you can either stay in that mentality and try and fix what in our opinion is unfixable, or you can do something, which is our framework, our ethos, which is return on mess. How can we actually provide return on messy, unstructured data? And how we've approached it is we're basically gathering offers. We have an orchestrator, we have an integration engine to capture everything, not only from the internal tech stack of the team, but also that of the industry, meaning carriers, brokers, maritime lines, everything, you name it. We're absorbing the data through AIS events. So we centralize everything. And then based on that, what we do is that we've adapted the UBL, the Universal Business Language, to be able to create all this data ontology and then have this single source of truth. It's all about having a single source of truth. Data governance is a very big one here because there's not one player, as you mentioned in the beginning, there's multiple. So mapping the data governance has allowed us to be able to structure this in a very efficient way. So look, the short answer is yes, it's chaotic. I don't want to say it's bad, it's chaotic. But there's ways to find the return on mess. And here is where AI comes into place. It allows us to combine very deep industry expertise with context, not only from a company level, industry level, but a user level.
Makes sense. And I think that is much better phrasing than I did about data being chaotic rather than bad. So thank you for that term. But now coming towards the solution part of it. So I know I'm looking at this at the podium itself, that you have multiple segments of data that you are working with. And you basically have said that you have created a layer on top of the existing tech stack, which you are extracting information from and then providing key insights. So is that insight specific to any genre such as invoicing, or is it more around your delivery timeframes? What kind of insights are you drawing from this data?
Yeah, so how we do, and you mentioned it perfectly, right? We're remembering on top, and the reason why we're remembering on top because we don't believe in reaping and replace it. The industry is not ready for that. Their systems are super robust. They have been around for some companies have been using their ERP for 20, 30 years. Yeah. So it's just not the framework. So that's why we sit on top. Now, in terms of the use case, more than on-time delivery, and we do OTs, it's precisely connecting inventory with supply chain. So this is guaranteeing that you have SKU level control, meaning that you know when, how, and what's the level of risk of receiving a product. But because for our shippers, it's not about the container. Yeah. It's about what's inside. They're not seeing it as a trailer. They're not seeing it as a container. They're seeing it as the bananas, the potatoes, the lemons, the toys that they need to be able to fulfill a contract or produce a product. Yeah. So our use case is precisely that. We combine all the data together, and in that you have, of course, on time in full, you have safety stock analysis, you have route optimization, you have free time analysis and insights. But we don't only leave it to the insights, we make it action. So what does this mean? We tell you, hey, you're below safety stock on the little containers. You have another supplier that is in the Caribbean, let's make something up, that it's 5% more expensive, but your risk of not having it is 40%. Do you want me to create a purchase order? Okay. So that's what Nauta does, is not only collects, gathers, generate the insight, but gives you recommendations and it makes it action. We believe that the industry is done with where is my container. The industry needs why is my container there? What are my options? And what is my level of risk? What do you suggest? So that's where we're.
And I think that's a fair point, right? I mean, the world that we are living in right now with tariff and risks, supply chains are actually facing the pressure of identifying multiple vendors, multiple positioning their supply chain in different countries and different continents, to kind of not have that risk exposed to themselves. So I think that is kind of one of the positives about like having a software that sits on the top and kind of gets insight from it. One thing that I want to kind of learn from you is, what are the advantages of having not replacing an ERP and sitting on top of it? Like, what are the advantages of that?
Look, I think it's a little blurry still in general because we're transitioning, but three things. Number one is implementation is super fast. Our implementation takes 30 days and it's 30 days to ROI. So these companies are super tired of doing very robust implementations that take years. Like we've had a client that's been implementing ERP for 2 years. So that takes you away from your job, which is moving products. They're not a tech company. So that would be the first, is speed to power, right? That's the first. Second is there's context and years of know-how in the systems. The problem is that they're systems of record, not of transactions. So they'll actually act as repositories and we make that data actionable. There's a ton of things that the systems do that we don't want to do. It's not core to our business. So we see a mutually beneficial relationship in actually augmenting the system. A very fun fact here is we had integrations, again, as I mentioned, because we sit on top via API, ADI, SFTP, you name it, we do everything. But at this point, we're writing more information back into the systems that we're consuming. So that's the level of power that you start to see in creating this, in removing these data silos and this fragmentation in the industry. And now that we believe that our view is that the global supply chain will be transitioned, we will create the single source of truth, this homogeneous data, these rails of information where everyone can consume.
And then at a company level, who is the consumer of this insight? Like, is it leadership? Is it an operating manager? Or is it who is making the decision based on?
So there's two things: who makes the decision and who's the consumer. And I wanna keep pushing on. This is not insights. These are actually, it's part of your day to day. We're not an AI teammate either. We are your brain, your brain behind the operation. We're your system of action, right? So our user is mostly the operator in the logistics team. So this is the person that is dealing with both internally with the procurement and the warehousing team, juggling between stakeholders, making sure that paperwork is aligned, that the broker is declaring. That's our user. Now, who is our buyer? It really depends on the company. So if we are going for your lower enterprise, higher mid-tier, so these are companies between the 200 million to a couple $1 billion in revenue. And so our buyer can be the CFO, the CTO, the VP of logistics, sometimes even the owner, because most of the companies are privately owned. So in the US, there is a huge economy. These are companies that people most of the time don't even know. And that's our sweet spot.
Got it. Okay. And let's talk a little bit more about the user that you described, the person who is coordinating with multiple teams. So at the end of the day, the biggest pain point for that kind of a user, as I think about it, is going to be he's spending too much time talking to people, slacking, emailing. Number two, he's spending too much time kind of writing invoices or kind of collecting data. And then he's also working towards with data and data analytics to kind of gain insights from it. So are you saying that with the help of this kind of software, that user persona kind of solves multiple problems at one go?
Not only that, but you're understanding what's important, what's critical, what's urgent, and what can be like, what is the most, where should you be spending your time? So what our agents are doing is taking care of our own 85 to 90% of all of this manual workload that is going in the back. But not only that, they're prioritizing for you, gathering the context that all of your company has out there and putting it in a single place so that you can take action on what's important. So now we see exception management on its finest, because we say that, our operators are firefighting and doing all these things at once. But the reality is that they're doing 90% of the time grunt work instead of actually managing for exceptions that are what kills a company at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, makes sense. And I think this is a good time to kind of add one point that you mentioned in the beginning, which is augmenting versus replacing humans.
Yes.
So since we are talking about the users, can you help us understand the augment versus replace? Like, is this a fear versus like what productivity gains that organizations will definitely get productivity gains. And those productivity gains could lead to a point where they're like, okay, maybe we don't need this entire work function because now AI can do that work. So
Totally.
yeah.
Look, I think there's different ways to do this. And the main reason why we see them as augmenting, because these humans have context. And the challenge with the supply chain is that that context doesn't live anywhere. Like, you've been in the industry for a while, and you know that sometimes there's not even written contracts. There's the unspoken language, the unwritten things that are, let's say you're my supplier and we've been working together for 40 years. We have trust.
Yes.
Right? Like, I know how you work. You know how I work. That's not written anywhere. If the context is lost with the humans, it's very hard for the AI to actually add value. So that's the first reason is we want to capture the context from the human. First thing. Second, we really don't think that the industry is ready for full on autonomous, because there's so many moving parts here that you do want the human to do that final call. I'm not going to say that this is going to be like that forever, but we do expect in the next months to couple of years to remain that way. And I think you need to be empathic. You need to understand where you're working at. And there's other industries that are more ready.
Yeah.
Here, we're in the process of transition. And so that would be the second. And then the third is we, more not for the operator, but for the company, we believe that proving real ROI can not only be on removing people, because once you've removed it, then it just kind of becomes obsolete.
Yes.
Right? Like, it just becomes second nature. So we believe in revenue generation at its finest. And so we don't work with clients that don't see past just optimizing people. We don't work with them. We tell them, thank you very much, or no. And we've rejected clients because of that. Because if you want Nauta to actually transform your business, it needs to go beyond just optimize it.
Got it. And I think the important point over here is that number one point that you said, like, is it the context that these humans have? And that context is super important.
Super.
How does that context actually help you make agentic systems? Like, how is that context going into the agents?
Oof, we have multiple ways. And so the first is inference. So we're understanding how they behave. When do they request certain things? How lenient they are with certain suppliers. So that's being inferred and captured based on patterns and behaviors. That's the first. And I would say the coolest, the sexiest of what AI is bringing. First thing. Second, we're able to capture from their email, from their documentation, right? Things that are not necessarily construction. So we're extracting more fields and everything that normally wouldn't be used.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third is we're being able to overlap industry, company, and user behavior and create this network and compounding effect that helps as we add more clients. So context is not only of you, but of a company that we work at and in the industry and their work behavior. So we capture that in those three levels.
Got it. I have a question related to that, but I will ask that in one moment. The question that I want to ask right now is related to trust, because trust
That's
comes.
my currency. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
But trust is the currency here.
Yeah, and that is built through accuracy. I think the more accurate the insights are, the more trustworthy the agents become, and the more trustworthy it becomes for the organization. So, if you were to look at this metrics, and not as an organization, how are you measuring that trust?
Oof, that's beautiful. So look, we measure trust in three things. Number one is engagement. So how often are they, how are they transitioning from their previous ways of doing things into Nauta? And so that's why real ROI is fast, because trust, as you mentioned, is precision, quality, but also value. Like, how much value are you actually adding me? So first thing is engagement on the platform. And that engagement is transitioning from what they used to do before to Nauta. And then second is, how much are they actually using the agents to make those decisions? Because you can still use Nauta and not use the agents to make decisions. So, and we need to know to do that, because that's the way that the agents are gathering context, and then we start to remove those layers of human in the loop. Let's call it that way. So that's the first way how we use trust. The second is we have clients already asking us for financial solutions. So they're literally opening their doors. We have a seat in the kitchen with them. We know their suppliers. We know their pricing. We basically know their margins. And so trust is not only on the data, but in Nauta as an organization to touch the most sensitive parts business. And so how we're measuring this is that we start through logistics, and now we're expanding into procurement, we're expanding to warehousing, we're expanding into finance teams. So we're getting more and more access to all of their information. And that's the second way. So first, engagement. Second, our expansion within the companies. At this point, we've done upselling in more than in more than 10 to 12 of our clients in not even a year of operation. So we're getting deeper exposure and access. And then the third is word of mouth. A lot of our clients are recommending to clients. Yeah. The supply chain looks big, but it's a small industry. Everyone knows everyone. Yeah. And so that's also something we're extremely proud of, is our clients recommending even sometimes our competition to use Nauta.
Absolutely. No, I mean, definitely like that. That's the best way to kind of grow as an organization. But coming back to one of the questions that I wanted to ask, because you said that you're using all of this data and you're working with multiple organizations. At the back end, is there a wall that segregates model training only on certain company data? Are you using multi-company data to train your models? Or is it just like if you work with company A versus company B, their data remains separate and the models are...
Great question. So we don't train models. So we have a wrapper and an orchestrator. We're using the best models. And the reason why, it's because we talked about it before we started recording, and it's like, is product a moat or not? And so training models takes tons of compute, tons of resources. So it'd be very hard for startups to actually train. We fine tune. We have our own context engine, and that context engine, as I mentioned, is divided on 3 layers. So we have the industry level context engine, which all of our companies benefit from. So you have compounding effect as a client of Nauta of, like benefiting from all of the backbone that we've already created. That's the first thing. Then we have company level context, and that's specific to the company. Now, I'll give you an example. We start to have clients that use the same suppliers, right? And so we already have context on the supplier. It benefits one of each other. We don't take payment terms or pricing up to it, but we already have behaviors that we've inferred. We already know how they work. So we do overlap because it benefits our clients. Yeah. And then the third is the user context, and that's specific to the user. And so that's also very individual. So we try to help our companies and just optimize this on compound, but we do respect that it's very sensitive. And so on context specific for the company, we do separate.
Got it. Okay.
And here is a very important thing, because since we're doing agentic solutions, guardrails is the name of the game.
Yeah, right? Yeah, absolutely.
You need to have super specific guardrails, because even inside the companies, you don't want an operating seeing financial information, but you do want the management. So we're very big on guardrails to be able to operate.
Just to segregate the data and make sure that companies are actually feeling confident in knowing that their data is not getting exposed and not being used by their competitors. May use Nauta as well to their benefit.
100%. And that's where Dockerization comes in, guardrails, and I think companies nowadays, like we used to talk to it about roles and permissions, and before you used to get just a role in a platform. It's not like that anymore, because information's everywhere. So it's all about rails.
Makes sense. Okay. I think this is a good time to pivot towards a business model. So wanted to understand, how are you thinking about this business in general? Like, you are offering platform as a service, and then you have opportunity to upsell multiple different services or applications on top of that platform layer. So how are you thinking of building this into a scalable, repeatable business?
Great question. So basically what we do is that we always start with the business unit, and right now it's the logistics team. And then we expand, as you mentioned, into other areas. For us, this is a data play. So we're building all of the data foundations for these companies, meaning once we have this all set up, we can easily transition without having to do integrations, etc. So our first offering is basically helping companies be AI ready, helping them build the house in the right foundations, which is data. And then we start upsell from there. That's how we do it repetitive. We like to go very deep into the clients. We like to be partners, strategic partners for them. So that's how we do it. Right now, our pricing is based on company size, and how we measure it is based on orders, POs, purchase orders. That's how we define how big your contract is, and it's on a per customer.
Got it. Okay. So if we are to look at certain customers in a view that they might need multiple services, so are you offering like a Microsoft suite which has multiple applications that a client can offer, or just Excel as
It's not multiple applications. We do decouple certain services,
Okay.
but in general, when you buy Nauta, you get all of your data structuring, all your data layer. You get one main conversational agent, 5 sub agents that are working for you. So we're not like a Microsoft suite that starts building and starts already. No, like we basically take care of all of your data, single source of truth, ontology layer.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you have some services that are basically out of the box, and we can work on additional automations for you in case you need personalization. But in general, it works across the board.
I think this also is a great time to pivot because I am also a product manager by profession. So wanted to learn a little bit about your product management philosophy and how you go about it. How have you built this product from like one service into a platform? How did you roadmap it?
Yeah.
How did you understood that this is the problem and the pain point you have to go and solve?
Yeah. So I'll actually answer backwards. How we understood is Rafa, my co-founder, felt it firsthand. And our product philosophy has been not to chase the shiny diamonds. And this is super counterintuitive, but we're firm believers. And this is something hard. I'm a product person as well, because the industry doesn't need the Tesla. The industry needs the good old Ford Chevy that they can trust, that it's reliable, that it's always there and available. And so we built the product with that philosophy. We built the product with that philosophy and understanding that our client is not always super sophisticated, that they want something that it's familiar to use, that it's easy to use. And that's how we build. Now, with the philosophy of not following shining diamonds, we spent the whole last year on data foundations, data ontology, because we see our product. We're not chasing shining diamonds, because the sexy stuff right now is agents, right? Like, believe me, we all want to be building. It's so easy. It's not a mode to build agents anymore. So how we've structured this is we have the right data foundations, the right machine learning models, so that the agents can consume from the best and world class. Then we're able to actually add value to our clients. So that's what we've done. Our tech stack is divided in 3 main layers. So the first is data consumption, structuring, ontology, and basically building these single source of truth. Second is context engine. So we're very big into context engine and predictive analytics. So we use AI mostly for machine learning models and training more than agents, to be fully transparent. And then the third, which for us is the cherry on the cake, is the injecting layer of automation. So we're firm believers that the agents are going to be commoditized, to be very honest, and anyone and everyone can build with agents. For us, it's all about the foundations. And that's our product philosophy, is making sure that we're helping our clients build on solid ground. It's how like our analogy is, we don't want your house built on a swamp on the Everglades. We want them on the most solid ground. That's why we help our clients.
And I think that's a very solid point. Where my mind right now gets trapped in a lot of this AI world is that, as you rightly pointed out, AI will become a commodity. Agents will become a commodity at certain point in time, and it's no longer going to be the moat. What will be the moat moving forward? Like if you kind of remove that agent layer from everything.
Yeah. So look, for us, it's 3 things. Number one, having the foundations right, which we've spoken about, and processing that data. And it's not easy. It's really not. A lot of our clients have a pretty big IT and tech teams, but then we talked about at the beginning, it's very chaotic. And so spending a ton of resources on this, it's not their core business. So having that is one. Second is hyper verticalization. I think we're going to start seeing very niche solutions that are great at one thing. Our moat, our core is food service, all perishables, no perishables, products that have a shelf life of 3 years or less. That's most of our clients. And so we start to see that there's going to be experts. And then the third is, which is very connected, you got to be expert in what you build, an insider in the industry. Like, we definitely think that these very horizontal solutions won't really transform. They're very superficial at this stage. So you need to go very, very deep into it.
Makes sense. And I think that is where your context engine also comes into play, because like you are over a period of time understanding more and more context. So you become like an industry expert. But do you think that will become problematic to a point where now you have a niche and it's very difficult to break through that niche in the future?
That's a great question. And the reality is no, because import, export, supply chain works the same. It's almost like a little blueprint that we'll follow. What changes is the context. So how we build is an engine that on a client and user level is able to capture that. And you have a product background, so you'll understand this. Like, my fear last year is like, how do we not become a consulting company nor a software factory? So, because basically we're talking about personalization here, right? And so here's where AI comes into play. In our opinion, we need to stop thinking about AI just as agents, but build, as I mentioned, machine learning models, uh, context solutions to be able to capture. We're all seeing AI as, I'll help you fill out, create an invoice, I'll help you make X or Y, Z call. It's not about that. It's about capturing deep context and personalization. And that's what we've done.
And I think that's a very fair point, because at the end of the day, even if we look at AI is a solution to something.
Exactly.
It's not a problem. It's not the context. You have to build that back end to be able to find a solution within AI, either through vibe coding or building an application or a platform of agents that can work together.
Exactly.
I would like to end with one last thought from you, specifically around the industry at this point in time. When I look at supply chain as an industry right now, there are two ways AI is getting deployed. One is agentic commerce, where buyers are interacting with ChatGPT or Gemini to identify products with their intent. The second is the application within the industry. And I think you are on the application side. How is the application industry reacting to AI? Do you really see that big adoption happening right now, or people are still cautious around the applications of the AI? Because I really feel that there is a good value add that AI can do on the application side of the world.
Yeah. So, I mean, I wouldn't say we're on the application necessarily side because we're an AI native. Without AI, Nauta wouldn't exist. That's the reality. It would be physically impossible for us to capture, structure all of this data, be able to automate all these processes, transition from insights to autonomous decision. Without it, we wouldn't be able to do it. So I do, being brutally honest, like I've seen the industry looking for solutions. Like people have appetites. The real currency is going to be not only trust now, but real ROI. And so that's my view of we need to like almost like stop breaking this paradigm because between AI and application, it's all starting to merge in together. The true question is, who will be able to provide real ROI, and what do you need to provide real ROI to transform the industry? That's why I think we're going to start seeing.
Got it. And one last and final question, I promise. As an organization, do you see for you the value is selling directly to the customers, or do you see the value is partnering with these legacy WMS ERPs and offering it as a service alongside that?
Great question. Look, we see value in both, and we do both. We do partnerships not only with WMS, TMS, OMS. We do partnership with carriers, with 3PL. So we see a value. They're a great channel for us, and they benefit from their clients being structured. So we see mutually beneficial relationships. We sell to the shipper. The shipper is our priority. We're very strict with data confidentiality. We don't sell data whatsoever. They are our priority, but we partner with all of these other stakeholders.
Well, thank you so much.